How much land do you need to raise 100 cows? I don't know if you guys can see, but the mama just had her little baby. Little baby filly. Now there's a big factor when it comes down to how much land you need to raise 100 cows. And that big factor really revolves around location. Before, I just want to throw out this caveat, there are going to be so many other variables. So if you live in one of these areas and you're like, that isn't even close, well, okay, understand, I'm going average based on things I've heard from people that live in those areas. So let's say you live in, Midwest, like Nebraska, South Dakota, Kansas, somewhere in there. And again, those territories, the ground varies heavily. But I would say average, you can get in some areas maybe one pair, one cow-calf pair could run on, maybe 3 to 5 acres. Okay, so let's say you need 100 cows or you want to have 100 cows and you can get 1 cow per 5 acres. Then you're going to need 500 acres of pasture to make that work. Now, that is only going to cover you for, the summer. You also have to have the winter covered, and that revolves around hay, feed. But let's move down to Texas, and let's say maybe West Texas, where I've heard, the ground is not going to get you as far as it might, farther north. And maybe you'd be looking at, 10 to 15 acres per pair. So then if you have, 10 and you want to have 100 cows, then you need 1,000 acres. So the variability there is pretty significant. That's double. And again, I'm saying 3 to 5 in, Nebraska territory, and I'm saying, 10 to 15 in Texas territory. Are there places in Texas where it's lower? Absolutely. Are there some that are worse? Yeah, there's oil rigs out in the middle of sand. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you can't raise cattle out there hardly at all. And in Nebraska, the ground changes dramatically. Sand hills, rolling sand hills where the grass is maybe not going to last as long, and then you get into like some really good grassland. You get into more of like where your cornfields are, and then the pasture is more sparse, but it probably does a little bit better. And it all revolves around the weather and the rain, and that's true everywhere. And then you get over into the mountains, you look at like Montana, Wyoming, and that revolves around weather heavily too. And you're talking about valleys along the mountains. It's just a whole different ball game depending on your location. We're assuming so far in this video that we're talking a cow-calf operation where you have 100 cows of cow-calf. What if you were talking a feedlot? Because some of you maybe don't have cows yet. Well, a feedlot is, maybe purchasing 100 steers and they're putting them in a yard, and they're feeding corn, they're feeding silage, they're feeding some different dry matters, distillers possibly, different things like that. Well, that's a whole different ballgame. In that case, you could have a very, very much smaller space and just have like, a feed yard. It's just a feed yard. It's not pasture. And so the variability there comes down to location, but also what are you actually talking about for operation. If we're talking about, I think most people, when they're talking about wanting to own cows, they're more so talking about a cow-calf operation where they're actually calving out those cows. And, winters come harder in some places and more sparse in others. Summers come harder in some areas, more sparse in others. So if we're talking about, Texas, do they have to worry about snow near as much as up in, North Dakota? Absolutely not. It's a completely different ball game depending on your location. And I think if you wanted to start your first ranch, your first operation, first off, you should be checking out the Agri Summit link in the description. But other than that, you need to go out and find somebody in the area that you want to have your ranch. Find an older generational rancher. Just explain to them that you want to learn. Tell them who you are, what you want to do, and prove to them. Ask them if you can just come work for them for free for, an afternoon, a weekend, or maybe even longer than that. You have to trade some of your time, which is valuable. But how bad do you want this? Do you really want this bad like you say you do? Do you really want to be a rancher? Do you really want to own cows? I see there's so many people out there that keep saying and complaining that it's not possible unless you're a millionaire. Yes, it is. Are you kidding me? You don't have to be a millionaire to start. Is it way easier? Absolutely. Is it hard to start without money? Yes, it's hard. But anything worth doing is hard. You know, I lost 85 pounds. Was that hard? Yes. Was it worth it? Yes. You know, it's a completely different example. I'm not saying that's as easy. I'm not saying ranching's as easy as losing weight, but let's just be real. If you really want it, are you willing to ask somebody for help? And you're probably going to get some no's. But eventually, if you ask enough people and you really go for this, and you give it all you got, like you truly say you want to, you will find somebody. You will find information. And if you join a community like Agri Summit where you can ask people who have cows, you know, that's going to give you, you know, a step up. If you reach out to people online or watch videos like this, that's going to help you. It's going to give you a little bit more information to step up. You know, Google things, ChatGPT things. You have to fact check that stuff. But yeah, it's just more information that you can get down. The more you learn now, the more prepared you're going to be later. And I truly believe that we can bring back family operations, family ranches. We can bring back rural America and save the small towns. I truly believe that. The more subscribers I have, the more value, the more information I can put out here for you guys. So I really appreciate that. Until next time, God bless.